Half of the world's prison population is held in just 3 countries: the United States, China, and Russia. Rates of incarceration are highest in the United States, where more than 2 million people are imprisoned. I asked Adam Gelb of the Pew Charitable Trust about that.
It's been 30, 40 years now since the prison population in this country has been rising, and it's a combination of 3 things: putting more people in prison, keeping them there longer, and then having pretty weak systems to make sure that once they get out, they don't come back again.
And now, to combat this problem of overcrowding, some of the states, in fact, a majority of them, have cut imprisonment rates. And of course, as you know, critics say, well, that makes the streets unsafe. What is Pew actually finding when it comes to that number itself?
We're seeing a sea change happening around the country here. For that same period of time since the early 70s, when being tough on crime was sort of an article of faith for elected officials of both parties, what we're now seeing is people taking a harder look at the research and taking a look at just how big the prison population has gotten. That figure you're citing means that almost 1 out of every 100 adults in this country is behind bars, and we actually hit that 1 in 100 number in 2008. I think that woke up a lot of people, combined with the fact that prison spending was the second fastest category of spending growth in this country, behind only Medicaid spending. And those kinds of figures, combined with a whole series of new technologies and new strategies for reducing recidivism, or convincing policymakers of both parties that we've got to do things a different way, and that it is possible to reduce crime and be smart about it, while at the same time ratcheting back on how aggressive we were being about building prisons.
You mentioned new strategies. What are some of the new strategies that are being effective?
Right. There are really 3 things that are happening now that just didn't even exist really 10 years ago. First is new risk assessment tools. Researchers have analyzed data for thousands and thousands of offenders, and we have a pretty good idea now. There's no crystal balls predicting the future, but we have a pretty good idea of how to separate who's a high risk from a medium risk and a low risk offender. And then once they're sorted that way, and who needs to go to prison and who's a safer bet for supervision in the community, we have a better idea about what programs actually work to change that. So that's the second piece. We have much better behavior change strategies. And then lastly, new technologies, GPS and other things that, again, didn't exist 10 years ago, let alone 30, 35 years ago when the U.S. started down this prison building path.
Adam, another statistic from Pew, from 1972 to 2011, prison population spiked more than 700%. At the same time, though, serious crime is coming down, and some might argue, well, there's an example of why putting people behind bars is working. What would you say to them?
Yeah, there's no question that the increase in incarceration contributed some to the drop in crime. The other 70% was because of other factors. And the main point these days is that most of the states, in fact, more than half of the states in the last several years, are seeing decreases in both crime and incarceration. So what that tells us is that we've reached a tipping point where there are now diminishing returns to more and more prisons.
Adam Gelb joining us from Atlanta. Thanks so much.
Thank you.